Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love the YouTube channel called Style Insider. Do you ever watch her? She does really great, style trends for the upcoming season kind of videos, and she's just fun to watch. And she did a video about a woman who was 65 years old and a style icon. So her name is Lucinda Chambers. I'll leave a link to the Style Insider video where I first encountered her. I'll put that link in the description. But Lucinda Chambers had a line along with a colleague named Molly Malloy, and they had a line called Colville. When I went snooping on their website, I really fell hard for a skirt, this really cool upcycled skirt that I'm still trying to find the right raw materials for, but it was paired with a really cool t-shirt, which I thought would make just a super easy, straightforward upcycle that might be really good for sew to sell. So the concept of this triptych t-shirt, like taking 3 t-shirts, putting them together into one, looks really cool, looks really fun, but from 3 t-shirts, you can make 3 t-shirts. It's not like a lot is going to waste. And so I went thrifting. So I bought 3 big t-shirts that I kind of like the look of, Grumpy, and then a beautiful wolf. That's neat. And then a Mickey Mouse one. So I like those 3 together. Then I started thinking about the concept. If I'm using 3 t-shirts, if I kind of split them up evenly, I will end up with 3 t-shirts. But if I take more than 1/3 from each of them, I might be able to do the same thing with 3 little t-shirts. 3 t-shirts that are too small, but I take as much as I need from the 3, I might be able to turn those into at least 1 t-shirt that fits. So for that, I bought 3 t-shirts out of the kids department. So these were really, really cheap and they're just fun. Now that one's gonna be a little bit trickier because the neckline's gonna be smaller. One of the sleeves is really small. I don't think that's gonna work for me. This sleeve, that should be fine. But because there's going to be more fitting challenges with this little one, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to do that one second, and I'll do the easy big one first. Alrighty, so these have all been washed. They're ready to go, and I'm just going to start cutting up t-shirts and putting them back together. I think it's going to be really fun, and as I say, I think it really would be a good sew to sell. Let's see where that takes us, so let's just get busy. They are all from the men's department. They're all pretty big, and I think I'm going to cut them symmetrically. Of course, you don't have to. There are no rules here. You can cut them asymmetrically, but I think because this is my first time doing a triptych t-shirt, I'm just going to cut it symmetrically, and I'm going to cut them all about 1 inch from the neckline, straight down. So I'll put my 1 inch line right beside the collar, and I'm just going to come down parallel to the front edge here. That first cut is always the scariest. Okay, so now I've got the center of 1 t-shirt and the sides of 2 other t-shirts. And I'm going to do the same to the other 2 t-shirts. Fold in half, nice and even. 1 inch and then parallel. This one is giving a much smaller centerpiece. That's okay. Now I have 3 t-shirts. They're now kind of dictating, like, this is the side front that's going to work with that, right? So there's a right and a left now. Like, I don't really have to make any decisions now. It's all just, there's 1 t-shirt, which is pretty cool, just centering that face. I like that a lot. So that's t-shirt number 1. There's 2, also fun. And there's 3. This is definitely a little odd to just have the little Grumpy hanging off the end, but it goes with the Disney, so we're good. Alrighty, so now the lengths are all different. I think I'll deal with that later. You could certainly leave them like that if you want, but I am going to just cut it off even, but that's pretty fun. Okay, I'm just gonna take that outside piece and put it over the side, right sides together. And I did get my serger back from the shop finally, so I'm just going to serge these edges, matching up the shoulder seam, clip. So I'll have 6 seams to clip together like this and serge together. So I've got a mixture of black, gray, and a rusty brown in the serger. So that just went together super nicely. There's the center and left side of t-shirt 1. And now the right side's going to go on in the same way. So I'm just going to flip the center over top of it so I get them right sides together, match up the shoulder seams, and clip my way down both sides. Okay, so I serged all 6 seams, and just look how fun that is. These would just look amazing, all hanging on a rack at a craft fair or any place that you have a chance to sell your creations, because they just look fantastic together. So that was pretty quick and pretty easy. So now I have to finish off the lengths of everything. They're all different lengths. For each one, I'll just be cutting right above the shortest hemline, and then I'll serge and rehem all of them. One sleeve might be a little longer than the other, and that's probably just fine. I definitely want to get one of my lines on the center front fold, so I have a right angle at the center front. And so I'll just serge around the bottom edge of all 3 t-shirts. And then all I have left to do is turn up the hem. On a t-shirt, you don't want your hem to be too skinny because it will roll. So at least 2 centimeters, if not 3. So at 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches, anywhere in there is fine. So I'll fold up 1 inch. And then to sew this, you can use a double needle because that has stretch built into the seam, or a lightning stitch, which is sort of like a stretched out zigzag. So I'll be sewing around right on top of that serging, and that serging is giving a lot of stability to this hem. So do you know what? I think I can just use a straight stitch. I don't think I'm running the risk of that stitch breaking because the serging is there to support it. I'll stretch like to the maximum of the serging as I go, and then I don't think I have to worry about my thread breaking at all. So I think I'll use the gray thread because that's the sort of more neutral. It can blend in probably better than if I use black or the rusty brown. So I've got all 3 of them pinned, and I've put in a ballpoint needle because these are like a cottony knit, and those are the knits that I find really can get damaged from a universal needle sometimes. A silky knit I tend not to worry so much about, but these cottony knits seem to me to be the ones that get those little holes that only get worse when you wash the t-shirt. So now I'm sewing around right on the top edge of the serging. I'm just putting a little bit of tension on the hem so that I'm stretching it as I sew, tucking in my serger threads. So the serging is holding that stable. Like it just simply can't stretch to the point where my thread is going to break. That's going to be absolutely fine. Okay, so around like that on all 3 and we're looking good. I'll give a final press to all 3 of these hems, and then these ones are done. How fun is that? I love it. So I think this is really cute. I'll wear this one for sure. And then there are 2 more that I could, if I sold things in a farmer's market or a craft fair, I could totally sell these, or I can give them away to friends. And I think this really is a good sew to sell because I think I bought these t-shirts for $4.50 each. So for $13.50, you end up with 3 t-shirts. There's no waste, and you could sell them each, I think, easily for $20, maybe more, depending on your location. So that's a pretty good profit margin, and it's pretty quick, right? Once you have this down, you would be able to do this really quickly. And I wanted to also mention that, of course, these seams don't have to be straight. You could very easily taper in the center one to make it a little bit more of a flattering fit. And those seams don't have to be parallel either. Imagine you could do one seam sort of from shoulder to hem and then break that lower piece up as well, mix it up, and I think that looks fantastic. You could also, instead of mixing 3 t-shirts, you could have 6 t-shirts that you mix all up. One other thought is that if the necklines are similar and a similar band, your seam can go right through the neckline. That's no problem. Curved seams are possible, but of course a little bit more difficult. But as long as you kind of cut all 3 t-shirts the exact same way and then just rearrange your puzzle pieces, you're good. There's really no end of possibilities for this one. Okay, so now these kids ones, I have to admit, I am feeling very underwhelmed with these 3 kids t-shirts, but I still want to do this one. I don't know if I'm going to love the finished product. I kind of don't think so, but I want to show you that you can take 3 small t-shirts and make one big one. I won't be cutting them all up evenly. I'll be taking the maximum amount from each one. One of them has a really small sleeve in comparison to the other ones. And so I'm also going to show you how I'll use the other sleeve of this t-shirt to enlarge that one just on the one side of the t-shirt. So that's not as great of a sew to sell because 3 t-shirts is going to get you one, but it is kind of good if you just have some small t-shirts around and you want to turn them into something kind of funky and wearable. All right, so let's jump into this one. Okay, so this is the one with the small sleeve. And so one solution would just be to use it as the center, but I'm really not in love with this graphic. So I want to use as little of it as possible. The graphic is still going to appear, but it'll just be a little hint of sharks. So that one I think will go on the side. I think I'll put the more neutral one in the center. And then this colorful one on that side. Am I in love with this look? No, I am not, but it's the concept I really want to share with you. So let's see. With these t-shirts, I cut them all about 1 inch from the neckline, right? And I cut them all the same that way. With this idea of making this t-shirt just as big as I can, I'm going to be cutting more. So for the center one, I'm going to go as far away from the neck as possible toward the shoulder seam. Get it all smooth, in half, nice and even. And then I'll just cut right beside the shoulder seam. So I've taken as much as I can for this center panel. Let's do this one next because it's the most straightforward. I'm going to use the left sleeve from this one, and I'm going to cut it as close to the neck as I can. So I'll be using this part. At this stage, this part is going to waste, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see if we can figure out something to do with that. And now the shark. Not my favorite. I don't know why. I think I just did not have a great selection on the day I was thrifting for these. And then again, I'm going to cut as close to the neck as I can. Good. And so now this part is going to waste. I'm sure I could figure out, yeah, I'll put those 2. Oh no, I can't. I can't put these 2 into one t-shirt because I need the sleeve of this, right? I need to make this sleeve bigger. It's teeny. And the other side of the shirt has quite a large sleeve. So I want to make this one about the same size as that one. So right here, this is what I have. Quite a difference. The colorful one is still going to be longer, but I at least need to make this the same width. So I think this will work if I kind of take a couple inches from here and sew it into here. Theoretically, that might work. Now, of course, the seam is not gonna, I think I will start by lining up the seam. I'll have to rehem this little smidge, but I think I'll kind of do like that. And then will that give me, that gives me a sleeve that's the same width as this one. Good. Okay, let's try. So that is not where I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut sort of double seam allowance width from there. I will be serging that seam, so I don't need a big seam allowance, but I want basically to have seam allowance attached to this piece and allow for the same amount of seam allowance on this piece. That might be confusing, but I think you'll see what I mean. Okay, so I could open up that serging. You know what, it's such a small amount. I think I'm just going to cut it right off. So then this piece will sew into that piece. There will be a difference in the sleeve length, which I'll take care of after. So that's going to give me a more reasonable size sleeve. So I'll start clipping or pinning at the seam, matching up that armhole seam. I just got a comment on my most recent video. Somebody said that when they worked with knits, they have a huge problem of the knits stretching out. And I think you do just need to be gentle with them. Like I haven't stretched a single thing yet. And when I serge, I'm not going to stretch it either. The serging has built-in stretch, so you don't have to stretch as you sew. So I think it's just all in the way you handle the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to switch my serger over to white thread and then serge both these seams. So I haven't shown this in a long time of how to change your serger over easily. I'm just cutting all of those threads, and then my white cones go on. The ones that have the most thread go on the right, and the ones that have the least go on the left, because these are the loopers that take up the most thread. And then you just tie them together, not like a shoe, but more like a water balloon, where you put the two threads together and through the loop. So that knot is going to be able to be pulled through. Now, if I had a fancy serger like the Baby Lock Victory or Imagine, I would be able to just put these through with a puff of air, which is so cool. But on this old Kenmore, we do it old school style, and so it's not too bad. You just tie your threads, and then I'll show you how I easily pull it through. So now lift up and then kind of wiggle the threads out. Can you see that loop right there? It's sort of the last one that's coming back toward the machine. That's the loop I want to cut. And then I can just pull everything through until the knots hit the needles, cut off the knots, and pull the rest through. And then just rethread the needles. And again, if I had that fancy Baby Lock, there's a really nice needle threader on it. But this old Kenmore has been good to me for, dare I say, 30 years, 35 years probably now. So if you can buy a secondhand Kenmore, that is the way to go. But if you want to treat yourself to something beautiful, check out my affiliate link for quality sewing for that new Baby Lock. Alrighty. So now I'm just serging that little skinny panel to the main side panel. Alrighty, so now that little skinny panel with that little skinny sleeve, it is about the same width as the other sleeve. So we just have an extra seam. I'll be taking care of this bottom hem at the same time that I do the bottom hem of the whole shirt, but putting them together makes me comfortable knowing that the width is the same. So now it's exactly the same as the first 3 t-shirts I did. So this one is going to flip right side over that. So these are right side together, matching the shoulder seams. I'll serge that whole seam. Sometimes just by putting 2 things together, they end up looking like they belong. So right now I'm liking that more than I expected to. So same thing over here. We're just going to flip those right side together and start pinning at the shoulder seams and make your way down the front and down the back. If you see me doing like this little side to side movement, what I'm doing is the edge is curled. I just hook it around that edge to just pull it back and flatten it out. You always need to make sure both your edges are together or else you're going to have holes. See that little curl? It's irritating, right? Okay, so there's good and there's bad. I actually like this more than I expected to, and it's really big. Like, I'm going to piece together the parts that I cut off just to measure what the original circumference of all 3 t-shirts were, because I should have probably done that as a point of comparison. But now it's like surprisingly roomy, and I kind of like that. But these seams are giving me an opportunity to do some fitting. And so I might just like actually make it smaller now, but you certainly can leave it just as big as you want. The only reason I'm going to do a little bit of fitting is because I think I might actually end up liking it. I'm going to sort of treat these like a princess seam. Well, I guess they kind of are a princess seam, aren't they? But I'm not going to make it fitted. I just sort of want to have it like a more flattering shape, I guess. Okay, so that's already a little bit better. Feels a little bit better. I could do that same thing at the back. It's always tricky pinning my own back. I'll just pin the biggest part out and then I can blend from there. All right, yeah, that feels better. The only thing that feels terrible is that neckline. So, yeah, I really can't stand when a neckline hits me right there. I can't. It's worse than nails on a chalkboard. So I would like it to come down to about here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to just take a little piece of this neckband and kind of insert it right into the middle there. That might be really fun. This sleeve is sort of the like limiting factor. I can't do too much to make this one longer, but the width of it is going to be fine. I might end up making this sleeve as short as that one. So okay, so now we're getting into the tweaks. The concept, like you've got the concept, right? You can just skip ahead to the end and see how it all turns out. Or if you want to see the neck tweak and the sleeve tweak, then let's just continue with those. Okay, so yes, I might not have mentioned, but yes, I had it on inside out when I was doing that fitting. It's always best to have it inside out so you can pin out the excess so much more easily. Okay, so now I just want to compare my two sides and make them the same and give myself a good line that I'm going to now serge on. That's my top pin. I'll just blend into the top of that and the top of this. That'll be fine. And then basically I'm just serging from pin to pin. And I think my machine will be able to handle trimming that all off as I go. There are some sergers that don't like to cut that much, so you might be best to trim it with scissors first and then serge. So now I'm just curious as to how big these t-shirts were before I started all this Franken-stitching. So there are my 3 sections of the blue one. And so the total there is about 15 inches, so 30 in the whole circumference. Good. And then the black and white one was a little bit bigger, 15 and a half, so 31. And then the colorful one is the biggest, that's 20, so that's 40 in the circumference. And so when I've got them together, before I do my fitting, before I bring it smaller again, my total width here is 25 and a half, so that's 51 inches in the circumference. So that is a full 21 inches bigger than the smallest t-shirt was, and 11 inches bigger than the biggest t-shirt was. So that's quite impressive. Like, that's quite a big difference. So now let's make it smaller again. On the serger, these 2 little bumps that are on the presser foot line up with the needles. So I want that left-hand bump to more or less follow my little marker line. I'm going to leave the back neck attached because it's all nicely encased and everything. So I'm going to remove most of the front neck, not right up in here, because that'll be hard to put back in together. So I'm going to stay like a good inch away from that binding. Okay, so I'll open up there. And this is the easiest kind of neckband to alter, where it's just serged. It's not top stitched. It's like cheaply made, right? But that makes it easier to alter. This kind, where can you see it's sort of wrapped around? There's no seam here. This is actually like, I probably wouldn't bother doing it if my neckband was like that. So that's why I'm choosing to use a section of this band. It's got a cover seam, which makes it a little tricky, but not as difficult as that one is to deal with. So alrighty, so this one's easy. It's a 4-thread serge. That means there are 2 needle threads, just like my serger, and those 2 needle threads line up with each other. And so I'm just going to cut through the needle threads there, and then way over here. Okay. And then I want to pick up the needle threads a little further in. So here you just want to make sure you're not pulling the loop of the stitch. You're not pulling that looper thread, because that just tightens everything up and makes everything worse. You're just pulling those needle threads, which I know this ivory on ivory, it's going to be really hard to see, but hopefully my description makes sense, because once you get rid of your needle threads, everything else just falls right off. So it's not really that bad to pull out your serging. The one with the cover stitch will take a little bit extra time. Good, so that wasn't too bad. So an interesting thing to note about a t-shirt neck like this is that this is really quite stretchy. I can lower the neckline by a good inch, inch and a half maybe, and just use this. I don't even have to extend it. But today I want to drop that quite a bit lower, and I think it'll be fun to bring in some of the other color. So I'm going to cut down that neckline. So with the shoulder seams matching, so I know I'm right in the center, I'm going to cut this neckband right in half. And then we want a right angle here. Now that's where I want it to finish, so I better add a bit of seam allowance. Right angle there, and then just blend it into the original neckline here. Now it just occurred to me, is that going to look sort of like a priest if I've got a different color right in the center? Too late now. Okay. So to get that cover seam out, I'm just sliding the blade in and pushing along. Make sure your left hand or your opposite hand is safe, because I'm pushing quite hard and I could stab myself quite easily. And then I just need a few inches of this. And then there's just a little serging underneath that. But it's just a 3 thread, which means there's only 1 needle thread. But that thread is just breaking and breaking. But anyway, there we go. We got it. Okay, phew. So I'll just cut. I don't need a lot of this, but I'll just cut a few inches and then see. So to add that little piece in between, I want to be able to open these right up so that the neckband piece looks good on the outside and on the inside. I don't really love just sewing them together and having a seam showing on the inside. So open them right out and right sides together and a little seam right there. And you can do that on your regular machine or on a serger, doesn't matter. Okay, 2 little seams like that, and then open them out, and then the neckband can go back on. Cute, right? So now to put it back on, I want to find the center of the front neck and just give myself a little notch there. And then the center of the band, little notch, tiny. So these ones, I'm just going to finger press for now, and let's just pin this right side together so it's kind of inside the shirt that is still inside out. I want that seam laying flat, and just stretch the band to fit the neck. And I think I will just serge this because I have very small seam allowance there. So I think I will just serge rather than sewing and then serging. So now you'll see why I didn't want to open up the neck too close to this back piece, because I have to get in here with the sewing machine or serger, and I wouldn't be able to get in very much closer than I am. Even this is a little tricky. So I'm making sure not to cut off anything, because if I make this neckband smaller at all, it's going to really show. It'll look wobbly. If I missed anything at the beginning or end, I can just get it on the regular machine, but I think it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to try that on, and if it's good, then I think I will just do an edge stitch here. I think the neckline always just sits better when it is edge stitched there, so I'll give that a little try. I was very uninspired by these shirts, right? I didn't even know if I wanted to make this one. And you know what? I actually love it now. This is such a cute one. I can't wait to show you. So here goes my little edge stitch on the front neck. And I always like things like this where you've cut into the graphic. I always think that looks really cool because it shows like an intentional upcycle. I love it. And to make this nice and straight, that's my little seam. I've got the little notch right there on my presser foot. Just trying to guide that notch right along here. Alrighty, so the neckline, little edge stitch is done. This looks so nice. And then now it's just hems. So the sleeve hem, I'm going to duplicate basically what's there. So that's one style of hem. But on the body, I think I'm going to duplicate this little hem. See what that is? It's sort of like a double needle, but against two raw edges. So there's just like a little extra, like it just makes this double little roll, which is definitely casual and streetwearish. And so I think that's fine for a t-shirt like this. So I've never done that, but basically it's here, the double needle's already there, and you just cut the edge. So when I've got these different size pieces, yeah, maybe I should double needle it and then I'll just cut that whole edge. That's fun. I've never done that. That'll be good, I think. We'll try. This area in here, I think that is just fine with this blue being a little bit longer because that's the edge I'm going to trim off. However, this is a lot extra. So I'm just going to cut here. And this, you know, this whole hem is going to be kind of loosey-goosey because it's going to have a little rough look. That might be a bit too rough. We'll see. And then here on the other side, same thing. I do want to be a little bit below, but not so much. So I am just kind of eyeballing this roughly. And then this section here, I might as well take out so I don't have that double layer. I should show you if you haven't used a double or twin needle before. So it looks like that. So there's literally two needles attached to one. And then I've got a spool over here, like kind of where you regularly put a small spool. Plus I've got the cone back there. You bring both threads together, you thread it all as if it's one thread, and then you divide your threads into the two needles. Okay, I'm going to give this a shot. So I'm kind of going to wrap that edge around. I don't have to be too fussy in particular here because I'm going to do that little cut edge. So on a double needle hem, you have to do it with the good side facing up. So you can't see your edge. So you have to feel it so you're not missing it. If I was not cutting that edge off, I would probably try to fix that up a bit because I got skinny here, but I think it's going to be fine. I didn't miss any edges on the inside. I think it's acceptable. Okay, I might fix up right here. I'll come in a little higher there. And then I can show you how easy it is to take out twin needle stitching if you do make a mistake. Okay, so it's the lower one I want to take out. On the back, it's just a zigzag stitch, so I'm just going to cut that and pull that right out. And then the rest just comes out easily there, just like that. Oh. Did you see what I just did? Yippers. I took out the wrong one. There are some days you're the pigeon and some days you're the statue. Here we go. Okay, the lower one, just snip that little zigzag stitch, find an end here, and give that a pull. There we go. And then that comes out. And now it looks better. Alrighty, so that little section is fine. I can cut off some of the excess on the inside and some yucky threads. And then same thing here. Little wrap, little fold, little twin needle. So I just want to see that I'm folding like a consistent amount. I can feel it here. I want that to blend in here. That will do. So now I'll cut off the extra, and this t-shirt is just for me. If I was doing a sew to sell, I might try a little harder. Truth be told. So now I cut off the folded edge. And then when you stretch it, it's going to mimic that one, which is essentially the same thing, right? It's got a double needle and a cut edge. So stretching it is going to make it curl. And even if it doesn't curl, that's okay. I think that is fine. I could cut off more so that it looks a little more consistent. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm just visualizing about a 1/4 inch below my line of stitching there. Good. I like it. And then same thing on this side. I'll cut off that edge, and I'll blend that right off the end here. Give it a little stretch. Hopefully it curls a little bit. That'll do. Now it's just the sleeve, and that one is just a normal double needle hem. I want to have seam allowance to wrap around there, so I know I'm going to be cutting this here, right there. I'll cut. So I kind of like to wrap this around, and you can even sew it that way. If I had the single needle back on, I would sew it right here so that it flips out. But I think I can just wrap it and start my double needle. You know what, that's just gonna have to do. I think there's some skip stitches. I guess I'll go over those little skip stitches areas. Okay, right in here is where there were some skip stitches. Okay, I'd say that is done. Awesome. I think the whole thing is done now, right? I might have some threads to trim. I'll press these little hems with a final press, and then I do believe this is done. All right, I can't wait to show you. Okay, so this one is done now too, and it's pretty cute, I have to say. I really like that little addition of the other t-shirt's neckline. I think that really adds a nice little touch to it. I don't know, as soon as you sew two things together, they tend to look like they're meant to be, don't you think? Especially like, you know, this is all kind of like a tie-dye sort of splotchy effect. So those three just ended up working together really, really well. The shark graphic that I wasn't too thrilled with, it's almost completely gone. There's a couple of shark tails which nobody would ever notice in a million years. So this one, not so much of a sew to sell, but more of a way to transform t-shirts into something that fits you and that you like and that has just that little something special to it. Because quite honestly, I wouldn't wear just a plain t-shirt of any one of these. It just doesn't express me. But when I put three of them together, suddenly it feels a whole lot more like me. So thank you so much for being here with me all the way till the end. I always love and appreciate that. If you want to, you can give a like and hit subscribe. That also makes my day. So until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.